My name is Darren Gilbert, retired federal agent. After a 24-year career in law enforcement, I found myself inside of a public high school providing security. I did not go into that environment with any type of preconception about tactics changing or the need for any tactics to change. I simply got into that environment and did what I'd been trained to do. Done active shooter training since it existed. And I've done it with multiple agencies. I've done it in large scale operations. I've done it as a SWAT. And I'm here to tell you there's not a single day where I trained in an environment that would represent what it would look like in a school where you had hundreds of kids running at you as you tried to advance the opposite direction. The basic tenet for active shooter response is draw your weapon and advance to the target as quickly as possible. Any setting like a public school, a church, a sporting venue, where there's masses of people, the contemplation of an adverent missed shot and a friendly fire becomes more and more real. You put them in an environment where they're fleeing for their lives and all the physiological reactions occur. They're not going to notice you. They're not going to just completely distinguish you as an officer, necessarily even see you. And so you run the risk, if you're moving with a firearm drawn, of having those kids running right into you. So the first thing I realized is that you shouldn't be drawing that weapon if you're predictably running against and into large crowds of people. That's just going to slow you down and endanger yourself and others. The next problem is the environment itself. Many of these school hallways are a concrete tube, a ballistic nightmare. Any missed shot is going to ricochet to an unknown destination. The next problem is many of these classrooms are of standard drywall construction. So a missed shot could go through 3 classrooms. Or at any given time, you don't know exactly where those kids are behind those walls. It is literally impossible to safely fire that weapon while engaging an assailant firing upon you. And now you're faced with the reality of trying to advance on that target to get a safe firing posture, which I would recommend at 7 feet or less. Number one, the perfect scenario, we have law enforcement on site. The shield provides them a tool to navigate that hallway in the worst case attack scenario where you're asking your law enforcement to close the distance down a long hallway, potentially advancing on an assault rifle shooting from a covered position while he is uncovered trying to close the distance. As I first contemplated the use of a ballistic shield, I had the same response that every cop that's hearing this for the first time has right now. They're heavy, they slow you down, and they're awkward. It quickly became clear to me that none of the ballistic shield handling systems right now are adequate to address what I consider to be the most pivotal element, a manner to quickly move on a target using the shield to provide not only cover for a portion of your torso, but also concealment by the use of a blinding LED strobe light. In designing our system, we went to 2 hands. The classic scenario of a singular prop, which dominates the industry today, and what's called basically a Groucho walk, where you're viewing through a port and engaging the target. That's got nothing to do with what we're talking about. It's still applicable in a hostage barricade situation and a number of rescue situations potentially. But if you're talking about a crowded public setting with people fleeing for their lives, there's absolutely no way you would want to be in this position. Forget the shield. Put your arm in this position. You are quickly and easily harmed and certainly have no power base. So what we did in the ergonomics of it is we rotated it to the side. This distributes the weight and the power throughout the body, and then brought in a second hand. The bringing in the second hand takes that shield from simply cover to a weapon. One argument against a shield is that we don't want our law enforcement running towards the shield, we want them running towards the shooter. And that's understandable. And that's why I propose that these things would be located strategically throughout the school. It wouldn't be simply the one location, and for example, the school resource officer's office. They should be put at key points where they can be accessed no matter where the incident's at and where your responder is located. Of course, this would involve monitoring and alarming these devices. The next key factor to a ballistic shield is that impromptu teams can assist the school resource officer in responding to that shooter. The next scenario that the ballistic shields would represent would be multiple groups advancing on the target. I'm a firm believer in the tenet that you hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And in this scenario, the statistics clearly dictate that you are not going to have a first responder come from off campus. It's not a single incident that's occurred, according to the Secret Service report. Of the 46 active shooter incidents involving K-12 schools, 68% were over in less than 5 minutes. 36% were over in less than 2 minutes. Of those, 20 were stopped by staff members, students, civilians. School shootings have become prevalent. Every school you go to, anywhere in the country, there are individuals who have already mentally committed and decided that they're going to act. The vast majority of these incidents were stopped by those individuals. Those individuals acted with no tool of any kind. In this scenario, the most important aspect of the shield is the ability to close the distance with a group of people to take down the shooter. The shield in and of itself is a deterrent. As I described earlier, placing these shields strategically throughout the school, where they're prominently visible and easily accessed by responders, a student contemplating such a horrific act will be repeatedly reminded day in and day out as he walks those hallways. It takes a horrific incident that's no more real to these individuals than a video game and brings it down to a good old-fashioned street fight, which none of these kids will want any part of. There are those that would argue that arming staff members is the best plan. It is certainly a deterrent. Arming anyone is a deterrent. But I'm sitting here telling you that I went into it after a 24-year career to include SWAT, and I wouldn't take that shot. I certainly don't want somebody who's not trained taking that shot, because there's not a safe shot to be had. There's only one, and that's the contact shot.